2024 was a rocky road for gamers and game developers. While we had some notable hits, there were also many failures. Things started great for gamers with titles like Pal World, which surprised many. The game sold over 15 million copies within a month on Steam. Things only went up from there. Of course, that momentum came to a halt after Nintendo decided to sue the developers. It is unclear where things will fall for the game, but one thing that we do know is that Nintendo does not play around with their copyright at all. They will copyright strike you for dreaming about one of their games. Helldivers 2 also enjoyed an initial stint of success, becoming PlayStation's fastest-selling game of all time. They sold an impressive 12 million copies within 12 weeks. Now, the game eventually took a bit of a hit as developers started to struggle with some balancing issues. However, overall reviews remained mostly positive. Warhammer Space Marines 2 was another instant hit with gamers. The reviews were overwhelmingly positive, and they managed to sell over 4.5 million units in the first month. The star of the show was Black Myth Wukong, which sold an impressive 20 million copies since launch, and for many should have won Game of the Year. Unfortunately, as we all know, they lost out to Astrobot, which was equally well reviewed. The point is that 2024 was not all negative. With that said, things could have been a lot better. There were financial disasters, studio closures, and lots of finger-pointing from the media. Behind many of these failures stood one name. 2024 was the year that many fans became aware of Sweet Baby Inc. Now, I am not going to go into detail again about what this company does. Either you know what they do or you don't. But in short, we will just call them a consulting firm that advises on diversity and inclusion issues. For many, things really started to break down with the failure of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. The game can be viewed as a complete disaster. It launched in 2022 and served as a launching pad for what was to come. When the studio closed down, people started to dig deeper into what happened, and that was when things really broke down. Out of that, Sweet Baby Inc. Detected was born. This is a Steam page dedicated to all the games that have been consulting with the company. It serves as a warning to gamers. If you look at the list of 2024 failures, it paints a very concerning picture. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League was the first big failure of the year for me. From character design to gameplay, the title just falls flat. There were many reasons for the failure, including some live service elements and a weak story. As mentioned, the designs were also terrible. I do not know how you fumble Harley Quinn. People love her because she is hot, seductive, and twisted. After a consultation with Sweet Baby Inc., they turned her into the opposite. Tales of Kenzira was another disappointment, although on a much smaller scale. Sadly, after its consultation and failure, the studio had to be shut down. Then we also had Dustborn, Conquered, and Star Wars Outlaws. Now Sweet Baby Inc. was not directly involved in all three of these titles, but the studios still followed a very common theme. Concord can likely be viewed as one of the biggest disasters of 2024. It is hard to explain just how much of a failure this title was. Sony acquired the studio behind the game and then pushed an additional large amount of money into development. It is reported that this failure cost Sony over $400 million. No matter what anyone said, one of the biggest failures of this game was the character design. No one wanted to play as the abominations that they created. Visuals form a big part of these titles, as successes such as Marvel Rivals proved. Now, it is not the only bar to success, just as Overwatch proved, but it is a starting point. Star Wars Outlaws is just another nail in the coffin for Ubisoft. People hated the design of the character, the story, and the gameplay. The studio behind Concord ended up closing down, while I am sure there is still much disaster on its way for Ubisoft as well. There are many more examples of failures that I can give, but I think the point has been proven. Now, if you ask the game media, they will tell you a very different story. It is not the fault of the studios, but rather due to toxic gamers. It is just a bunch of weird people who want to jerk off to pixels.
God, why are they so obsessed with race?
Because they're weird!
It should not matter if they race swap or sex swap or actively go out of their way to make a character as ugly as possible. None of it should matter, and that is why they have been working so hard over the last 10 years to change all of these things. Because it does not matter. Gamers resisted 2024 in a massive way, and I think we will see that trend continue in 2025. While I want to be hopeful that Western studios will learn the right lessons from this, I remain skeptical. Luckily, it is not all negative. There are still studios working hard for gamers. I will leave you with the words of the Baldur's Gate 3 studio director Michael Dowse, who recently said, "2025 and beyond is going to be an extremely tough time to ship a game, with divisions spilling into everything." I have one practical piece of advice that may to some seem controversial, but it's crucial. Anticipate, don't ignore, or ridicule, or stoke. Figure it out. Navigate the waters even if you think they're unfair or that the sea shouldn't be so rough. The reality is that it is.